Some years ago, I was invited to a party, an industry party at the studio, or I can't remember exactly where it was. I believe it's some studio in Lower Manhattan where I met Marc Schiller, who I had heard about but had not met before. And I asked him around that time if he would be interested in coming onto my podcast. And of course, this guy loves to talk. So he said yes. And he said, let's meet at the Core Club, which is a private club in Manhattan, where they were doing a screening of a film he was advocating for, directed by the filmmaker Laura Colello, who, by the way, would eventually herself come on my show, because she runs the MFA program at the Vermont College of Fine Arts, and so I'd meet up with her again. But Marc was showing her latest film and doing a Q&A, and he invited me to that. And during the screening itself, we sat upstairs in our private little dining room or conference room, I can't remember, and we had, I think, drinks and dinner. So that's on episode 176. I think that's our stronger conversation, to be honest. And then he was back sometime later on episode 290, where we met at his offices of Bond Strategy and Influence and Bond 360, a marketing company and a distribution company he was overseeing until his stroke about 4 years ago. So Marc, one thing is he has been, along with his wife Sara and his producer Alejandro Veciana, they have been following his recovery from the stroke. Warts and all, this is an unfiltered look into his life and his relationships. You got to see it. So I was on social media and I saw the clip that they put up, the trailer, and were doing a Kickstarter campaign. So go to Kickstarter. I'm pretty sure by the time you hear this, it's very possible that they have already met their goal, but they may not have. And also, there's no reason not to give, even so they can exceed their goal. So check it out. Go to Kickstarter, search under No Bone or Marc Schiller, M-A-R-C, Schiller, S-C-H-I-L-L-E-R, and check out their video and their campaign. I did, and I'm glad I reached out to them, and they invited me to come over and talk to them. And it was great after all these years to see Marc again. I've been talking way too long, so let's hear a drop about from the trailer and then go into my conversation with Marc Schiller, Sara Schiller, and Alejandro Veciana here on Filmwax Radio.
I have aphasia and apraxia of speech as a result of my stroke, and I want people to understand that these are disorders of communication that do not impact my intelligence. I am still the same person I always was. It is just difficult for me to communicate.
One of the things that has been so tragic about what happened to Marc is he was an amazing orator and a really powerful speaker.
You start to lose touch with what is art and what is advertising. And we're very close friends with Shepard, so for us it's not a judgment. We see
from
both
the day
sides.
I met him.
Try to balance both sides.
He was speaking at music industry conferences.
Any music conference that was out there, and then any technology conference that was out there, would want to put in a request for Marc.
He spoke eventually around digital advertising and ultimately executive produced a film.
He was celebrated already very early in the age of the beginnings of our thinking about social media. Marc was way out ahead.
The problem is when a brand starts to think that social media is Facebook and says, well, we need to be on Facebook and we need community and what have you, and then you realize that they're not capable.
Testing. This is Sara Schiller. 1, 2, 3.
Hello. That's Alejandro
Veciana.
Yes. Are you sure? It's not Veciana. And of course, returning for his third visit.
Yeah.
Marc Schiller. Yeah. There's only a handful of people who've been on 3 times.
Oh yeah. What?
Yeah. Well, it's the 3 and Up club, right?
That's pretty cool. The bar is high.
Wow.
Anyway,
does he get like a jacket like SNL, like when they have like host 5 times?
Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah, actually, if you host if you're a guest 5 times, you become the host.
Oh, right.
So you take over. That's how I got the job.
This project is in memory of those individuals whose lives ended prematurely after suffering brain injuries, like Luke Perry and John Singleton, who were the same age as I was when I had my stroke. I am also making this documentary to honor the bravery, strength, and perseverance of people living with brain injury, like Tracy Morgan and my friend, Kevin Pierce.
Thank you, Mark. That was spontaneous?
Yeah.
He chose the British accent.
I know. I was going to say it's like the GPS choosing the British accent. All right. Well, I called us all together because it's been a long time since Mark has been on. I've been thinking about you a lot over the years. I have not seen you, regrettably. When I saw that you guys were doing this was sort of made complete sense to reach out. So thanks. So thanks you all for agreeing to do this. I'm really excited and anxious to hear about this new documentary project. It's a feature, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Have you already shot all the footage?
Well, so...
This is Alejandro.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So we've been working on this project for a little over a year.
Okay.
But Mark has been gathering footage and recording since day one, since actually the day of his stroke. He's got footage from the inside the ICU.
You do?
So and Sara and his family and friends have been recording his recovery pretty much since day one.
How long ago was the stroke? Just for those listening, it feels like it's like at least good. I want to say 4 years. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It was 4 years ago.
Really?
Yep.
4 years. I can't imagine the amount of rehabilitation and occupational therapy and physical therapy that you've had to have gone through in all that time.
Besides spending 6 months in the hospital and in rehab, which he's lucky to be alive.
Yes.
And it's even more amazing that he's doing what he's doing.
Absolutely. That's being alive, you know? I mean, what's the alternative is existing. You know what I mean? Did you make a film before the stroke?
No.
Okay.
Well,
you distributed certainly enough.
Right. You executive produced a couple of films, including Alex Winter's Deep Web.
Right. But, that's often just a name in order to draw attention and financing and other talent to the project often.
But Mark you were also very involved from the beginning of that film, Deep Web. I think Alex Winter even said that it was like your idea. I think he said that in the film, actually, in our documentary. He says it's Mark's idea to make a film about the dark side of the internet. Yeah. And I think that was sort of...
Boy, were you wrong.
I also want to take everyone back to when Mark was 13. And his summer job was with his best friend riding around on the set of the Muppet movie with Muppet parts in the basket of his bicycle. So he is a filmmaker at heart.
Okay. The Muppet movie? Did you meet Paul Williams? Yeah. He did this podcast. Alejandro, when did you meet Mark?
Well, I met Mark, actually. I used to work for Mark's father, Marc Schiller. And Mark had come in to the office a few times, and I've met you there. But I started working with Mark about a little over a year, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Been editing since.
Okay.
Like April of last year.
Okay, because it seems like you really know a lot about Mark. I guess this project is... like getting a degree in Marc Schiller.
We've been meeting almost every week. Yeah. Actually,
okay,
for a year, for a little over a year, every week I've been going to his apartment and we've been editing together the film. And it's interesting for me because I've gotten to know Mark through this footage in a way.
Right.
What's also really fascinating is there is a whole group of people that only know Mark post-stroke.
Right.
So Alejandro doesn't know the Marc Schiller you and I know.
Yeah. Except for what he sees in the footage.
Exactly. I never, I did not meet Mark. I did not meet the
right
pre-stroke Mark.
Pre-stroke and post-stroke. Yeah. What do you think about that, Mark? That sort of bifurcates. That's the delineation mark in your life, right? Would you say? The stroke? Yeah. There's before the stroke and there's since? Yeah. Mark, how long have you guys been married, you and Sarah?
We've been together for 22 years.
Okay. And married for a part of that time. A big part of that
Big
time.
part of that. I don't even know.
You don't?
Since 2003.
Oh. You got married in 2003? Mm-hmm. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Yeah, it's a while. 16 years, I guess. Mm-hmm. By some quick math. So you were documenting everything since you were actually had the accident. Did you think, obviously, something's happening to me?
Yeah.
And I should shoot this.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you have an idea that this is going to be a film?
Yes.
Come on.
So
how would you know?
When he was in the hospital, we chose to shoot it.
Okay. But he was shooting already before you got there? Like, what on his...
No, not before he got there. So family was shooting when we got to the hospital. And for me, as his wife, I was really conflicted about that.
Yeah,
because it's a really private moment.
Very private. And you're...
But there are two things that sort of have reconfirmed that I made the right decision besides the film. Is that before Mark went into the hospital a long time ago, if anyone has been a big follower of Mark, he had a very long Twitter experience where he was talking about doing cocaine, laying in the back seat of a car in England with a group of transvestites because the train broke down going to a concert. And he tweeted the entire experience and everyone was like, why did he do that? And he was like, it was me. I was experiencing it, and that's who I am, and that's who he always has been, a very open book. And then one of the days that we had him home, and all of the meds for your brain make you really constipated, and he was trying to go to the bathroom, and he was like pointing at the camera and just saying like,
get the camera.
I want people to see what I'm going through. And so I knew even it justified the shooting in the hospital, which is not an easy thing to do when you're going through a monstrous trauma.
Mark, I understand warts and all was your philosophy about you even before the stroke. You're saying, but you felt you wanted people to see.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. That level of vulnerability and openness, but it couldn't have been that way before, though, to that degree. Were you? Are you saying you were willing to share just about anything, no matter how personal, how ugly, how?
I think a great example of this is when our daughter Samantha was born. She had a rare genetic syndrome called Angelman syndrome. Google it and just lay on the floor crying. And he wasn't embarrassed. I want to tell people about this. I want to be really open with it. And most people hide that kind of thing at least for a year or two. Yeah,
well, because they're grieving and. There's all sorts of reasons why you might want to hide it. Of course, it's just personal. I mean, but so what is this impulse about? I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. And I ask because this is now, part of the film, right? It's also part of it's this warts and all, everything out there, sharing it all.
Yeah. I mean, the film, I think, would not be possible without that kind of Mark's intuition to sort of record himself constantly.
Where does this come from, though? Do you think it was just always been part of your personality, Mark?
Yeah.
To record everything?
Yeah. Well, that's a method of exposing your life.
Yeah, I mean,
but it could have been in other ways. But this is I'm talking about the impulse of exposing your life and sharing these things. I'm just wondering,
Mark.
Oh, he's using his iPad now.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get at something? Bond?
Yeah.
Bond 360.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean this impulse started when you were working at Bond?
Yeah.
Through your work with social media?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that the idea of being authentic has always been a deep part of Mark.
Getting closer and closer to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really powerful thing.
And one of the things that through our work with street arts, through street artists, we always tried to put up work that was illegal and unauthorized because it had that level of authenticity. Yeah. And we spent a lot of time talking about vulnerability, risk, authenticity, and how that all comes together.
That's right. There's legal risk. There is emotional risk. And is that what this film explores, the risk? Yeah. Or is it just taking a risk to make it?
I mean, yeah. Well, Mark, he takes a risk in making this film, I guess. The film is really Mark's way to make sense of what had happened.
Okay.
And it's an intimate look at himself. It's a self-portrait. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a statement, I think, that he wants to make. It's a lot of different things.
Has it helped? Has it helped you make sense out of what's happened to you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I could talk.
Yeah.
Explain what Mark's doing.
So Mark has this app on his iPad. He uses it to communicate. He uses several things to communicate, and one of those things is his iPad.
But Mark, wouldn't you want to say how you feel, how the film, working on the film makes you feel?
Yeah, what is that? How has it helped? And it seems so arbitrary that you would be the victim of a stroke, that it turned your life into upside down in your family's life. Yeah. Had to be an incredible. I mean, I can't begin to imagine how difficult and challenging and painful this has been for everybody. Not knowing how this would turn out, how well you would be able to get what you would be able to do and accomplish ever again. Yeah. What kind of husband and father? All these very colossal things, and
the film sort of, I think, works through a lot of those questions and issues. There is a lot about his recovery and his struggle to sort of try and lead a normal life again.
Okay.
And I put normal in like quotes because, I mean, what is normal? But the film also has a lot of his past work in street art and distribution of film and his personal life. Mm-hmm. So, and it all sort of kind of intertwines together.
Sure.
I do want to say, though, that I believe this project for Mark has been the single thing that has gotten him up in the morning and given him something to be passionate about. He's a really passionate person.
I know.
And I almost don't want the project to end because he loves it.
Yeah.
And everyone needs something like that.
Right.
Passion project.
It sounds like you're getting to the next phase, right? Which is this money, the money that's currently, I should have mentioned this earlier, but I will during the intro, that we're here because you guys are doing a Kickstarter campaign.
Yes, exactly.
Which is in, how many days in are we as we record this?
Well, there's only 6 days.
6 days
left.
I think,
like 6 days left, I think.
Okay. So you'll definitely make your goal, and then you can enjoy.
We're almost there, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll exceed it.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I think so.
Hopefully we'll exceed the goal. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
We are right now. We're sort of finishing a final cut of the film.
So the funds are for post work and
post-production
finishing funds and all that
and festivals, everything.
Right.
Yeah.
What I love about the fact that Mark is doing this on Kickstarter is that he is one of the first people that really started to promote and support films on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So if you go back to the beginning of Kickstarter, and the guys that founded it know Mark very well, it's just a wonderful full circle story.
Yeah. It doesn't even have to be a full circle, because I think that I heard your anxiety or your concern just a few seconds ago about the end of this, but it seems like this could go on for, first of all, quite a while, and because there are so many phases, as Mark can attest to, the having distributed films. So you have festivals. Once it's finished, you have festivals. Then you have potentially then the distribution of the film. And then there's got to be a sequel.
Dun, dun.
Well, there's but there's always, and then there is another, a story. There's probably another story to be told.
There's a lot of stories.
Yeah, there's no end to stories. That's one thing.
That's why we have filmmakers.
Yes.
I think it's interesting that Marc, at least with this story, which is a personal story, is a disabled filmmaker making a film about disability. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times disability films are made by non-disabled people.
Most films are, that's true.
And most films are. And
right.
I think this provides a nice and unique insight because he has literally written and directed this film using yes and no, because the use of the iPad is relatively recent.
I see.
Or the proficiency with it.
Right,
so Alejandro and he have this simpatico.
Shorthand, obviously, because Alejandro, he's saying very little.
Yeah.
And then you're able to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah, that has been that.
I understand that's not just like overnight.
Yeah, exactly.
I get you. I understand.
It took maybe a couple of months, but
it also kind of illustrates that you're intuitive and.
Yeah, I mean, again, it took a couple of months to get in a good flow, I think. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Marc is very expressive.
Yeah.
So, and it's true. The use of the iPad was sort of while I was working with Marc, but at the beginning we were just it was sort of a guessing game all the time. I kept asking
multiple choice.
Yeah, exactly. Is it this? No. Right. Is it this? No. Is it this? No. Until we got the right answer.
Right.
And that might have, some simple questions might.
Can I give you a great example?
Like an hour.
Please,
or so.
I would love to.
So the other day, Marc was watching a film. I think it was The Creative Brain, which is a 30-minute segment, right. And he yelled at me to come over and kept going back to this one section on the film where there was a diagram with the brain, and then he kept pointing to his text and pointing to Alejandro, and I'm like, do you want Alejandro to watch the film? No. And then finally he opened up his film and he showed me his speech therapist, speaking, and he went to the section where she's talking about the brain and his brain. And finally I realized he wanted me to tell Alejandro to tell the animation person to take what Darcy was saying and animate that section.
So yeah, I should mention we have some animation in the film, done by an artist by the name of Dan Cribley. And it sort of mixes, we sort of mix real life footage with some animation. Mm-hmm. And Marc wanted that specific moment to be animated. And a lot of those moments are identified by Marc, where he points at the screen. He points, and a lot of edits are also pointed out by Marc just by, making a yes sound or a boom. Which he loves to use the word boom because it's sort of exactly. It marks this sort of moment. Even it could be a cut, it could be a transition, it could be sort of like whatever
right here.
It is. It's just,
I got you. How many words can you typically access from your
40 words, verbal words, but he uses 6 frequently.
Please.
What?
Up.
Okay. Please. All right. Well.
Yeah,
that's good. Are they increasing with time? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is.
He also uses, I think, because he has 2 amazing speech therapists, Darcy and Mary, who have worked with him and have gone beyond just the words. They've gone just through the iPad and through pointing at books and whatever. The goal is for Marc to just get his ideas across.
Yeah, sure.
No matter what.
Right. I think I can't imagine that Darcy and Mary, that they aren't, and anyone else that has been helping with recovery. I can't imagine that they're not thrilled that you would have something like this. You would be involved in something like this. What a fantastic way to increase the likelihood that all this work is going to succeed. Right? I mean,
they've been super.
You have to access so many resources.
Helpful.
Yeah, you have to be very resourceful to do something this big. So, right, you have to communicate constantly. I'm assuming.
We've done several interviews in the film, and then one of the sort of final interviews that we did, we decided to do an interview with Marc. And to prepare for that interview, Darcy and Mary prepped Marc really well, and we were able to have a full interview with Marc on camera, which was good. I think it was nice, and I think it also helped your therapy with them. It helped just you. and also the film. I think it works perfectly well.
The name of the film is No Bone.
Yeah.
You want to explain? Make no.
Well,
bones,
that's a reference to
Yes.
that's a reference to when he was in the hospital. And maybe Sarah, you can
Yeah, I
explain
can explain it. After Mark's first surgery to remove a blood clot, his brain started to swell. So they removed part of his skull and put it in his belly for safekeeping.
Wait a minute. Is that right?
That's normal.
That is normal.
For
It
many people with all types of brain injuries, strokes, car accidents, your brain swells and the pressure will kill you very quickly.
Right.
So they take that puppy off like 10 or 15 minutes.
Skull?
They actually carve it out.
Okay.
They carve like a
Yes.
piece like this big as your hand out. They put it in your belly and they put the skin flap over it, but underneath it, it's just the brain. And they wrote after the surgery on his skull with a Sharpie, no bone. So that every nurse, everyone coming in knew, don't touch that area. And so a lot of the photos we have of him, it says no bone, and his iPad got to be called No Bone, and No Bone
this
is
a
thing.
right. It resonated. Right. What more dramatic and a thing could you imagine happening to someone in your life than what you just described?
And I described the full story in the film,
Okay.
which is quite dramatic, right?
to say the least. I mean,
I just had not known that was done.
Who knew they put it in your belly?
Yeah, that's the part
well, they keep it. Don't they keep it in in the skin, right? Just so
Yeah,
that
it's in
under
the-
the skin, so
But
that
it's
it's preserved in
that's
your
where
body.
the skull bone. It's
The
bone.
skull bone to as the
so they can
doctor
put it
said,
back.
to keep it moist and so they don't lose it. And he said that with a straight face.
Yeah.
To keep it
Somebody
moist.
thought that up.
That's why they're the neurosurgeons.
Yeah.
Big brains.
Right. It's just that's a new one for me. I'm processing.
Yeah.
But
So yeah, no bones. It just stuck. It was hard to get rid of those two words.
oh, I can see why.
You know what I mean? It just
sure.
stuck with us. I think.
So they went back in and they put it back. Is that what they did?
Yeah, once the swelling goes down, it takes a long time.
How long is a long time?
I think it was 3 months.
That's a while.
Yeah, and it's hard for someone like Mark with so much pride. He had to wear a helmet. Well, he wanted to walk. If you want to walk, you have to put the helmet on. And
Sure.
we have some of that, I think, on tape where his frustration level is so high and he can't speak. And as I say in the beginning of the film, part of Mark's being is as a speaker, as a public speaker.
I know. Yeah, that's right. I remember quite well. Has any of the frustration that you're talking about? Has any of that frustration gotten better, or
Yeah.
It has. You're a little bit. You're learning to live with these limitations. They're so severe. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're still frustrating.
Yeah, it's still very frustrating.
Especially Mark. Also,
Not be.
As I said, he's very expressive.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
he's got a lot to say all the time.
Yeah. How much of it is he able to? I don't want to talk about you in the third person at all. Do you feel like what you're trying to communicate? Do you feel like you're getting most of it communicated?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I can imagine that it's if your brain is operating really quickly and you can never get as much of it communicated as you probably want to.
Well, luckily, I think we've developed a good back and forth and a
that's
good
right.
working
Right, and
good
of course,
workflow.
22 years or however long that kind of helps.
It's really scary because Mark and I have worked together. We're married.
I know.
We Wooster Collective together, which was a lot of really big projects. And I just know things about him, and people will just say, like, how did you know that? And it's just the decades of being so intimate.
Right. The synergy.
One day he was running around the house. He was pointing at books. He was pointing at his dresser. He's pointing at something else. And I was like, oh, he wants his incense from Sai Baba. And he was like, yeah. They're like, how did you know that? But I just knew from whatever we were doing that was kind of what I thought he wanted.
That's funny. Well, it's also it's great to have that with somebody, you know. So the Kickstarter ends very shortly. Hopefully this will be out in some fashion or other. And this can be more than just about the Kickstarter. This is more about the film. And, you know, and maybe when you guys are done and you're getting ready to get this into the next phase, whether that's maybe the festival premiere or whatever it is, or, you know, we can do a part two. Yeah.
Festival premiere.
Those are words that
it's
you
what
dare
every
not speak.
filmmaker wants.
Well, you'll have it. I can't imagine. You know, I'm actually going to like the Camden International Film Festival in August. Ooh, I've never been to.
I'm from Maine originally.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
my dad lives in Belfast.
Oh, I don't know where that is exactly, but
it's right near Camden.
Okay, it's close. Yeah, I've never gone before, but there's so many wonderful documentary film. I mean, obviously, right here in the city, we have Doc NYC, and I'm sure there's no way this. Not going to get into a good documentary film or a film festival.
Yeah,
so
hopefully. I mean, hopefully.
Make a good film.
Yeah, exactly.
No pressure there.
Though this is Marc's film.
I get you. Yeah, I heard that.
Yep.
I understand. Yeah, there's going to be one name above the title or whatever, directed by.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, this is Marc's film. I mean, this is his statement to the world.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Well, it took two very intuitive and sensitive people to be able to help make that happen and get Marc's message out. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. I can't wait to start showing people. We're just getting close, I think, to a cut that we feel is the final cut.
Okay.
So
if you're excited. Listening to this, go onto Kickstarter, search No Bone or Marc Schiller, MARC. SCHILLER. Either way, search Kickstarter and you'll come up with a project, and it'll be a place to contribute. But it's Kickstarter really is great. I did do a Kickstarter last a year and a half ago. It's very powerful for all sorts of things. It's not just about raising a set amount of money, but it's also helpful just to build a really strong group support system and network behind your film project and any future project.
Yeah,
it's terrific.
We've been sort of really, I think, lucky to have the response that we've gotten through Kickstarter, and everybody's been so supportive.
Yeah,
it's amazing, and everybody, Marc
great
has
community.
A lot of Marc
it's a great community.
Build a lot of a good circle of friends.
Oh man, I can't imagine that is between the art world and the film world and the business world and now the science medical community.
Absolutely.
Right? There must be a lot of people.
Yeah. No, we're excited.
I'm just wondering if Marc has anything to say on your iPad.
Yeah,
you're so good with the iPad.
I didn't want to push, but I wanted to hear. I want to hear more.
If there's something you want to say, this is.
Stay hopeful. Things will get better over time. Also, meditation. This has been very helpful to me. It is important to find activities that you are able to participate in and enjoy. My daughters, Sammy and Charlie. My wife, Sarah.
Thanks, Marc. I want to say that the meditation, which had been part of Marc's life since the early 90s, was definitely an element that when you have a traumatic experience, something like that just helps take you through it. So that kind of stuff the film brings to light that is really important.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. It's been such sort of like a puzzle I've had when I first started working with Marc. It was sort of street art, and then there was meditation, and then there was Sara and his daughter.
Right.
It was sort of a big puzzle that putting it all
Venn
together.
diagram sorts. Right?
Yeah.
And then, right. Yeah. Right, and then it's all about how does it all fit together? How do you tell all those different chapters in the particular film? And that's the whole key to it.
Right, that's what we've been
the
working.
Tone and the pace, etc. Sure, it makes a lot of sense.
And then we've had I said we've had some. We're going to have some animation.
House of Blues.
That seems
so. One of the things. Wait a second, Marc. Yeah. One of the things that Marc did as part of the film project was to text and email people from his whole life going back to high school and ask them to just send little stories, snippets memories, emotions, so that he could tell his own story about different parts of his life. And it's been really fun to see testimonies. Yeah,
testimonials or whatever.
Yeah, that's also
that's
when I started working at the House of Blues in the early 90s. Isaac Tigrat introduced me to outsider art, which is a movement that started in the 70s. This got me interested in art created by those on the outside of the established art scene.
Yes, that is another piece of that puzzle, is his work in the House of Blues, which was,
I didn't know about that, Mark.
That was sort of the beginning of his passion for street art through this outsider art, because I believe in the House of Blues, Isaac Tigrat, who was the founder, was very into outsider art.
Oh, okay.
And then that led Mark into street art.
Oh, okay.
Also,
is that how you guys met through at this point?
No, we met at well, actually, it is a continuation. So Mark was one of the first people to ever broadcast music live over the internet.
I don't
in 1993. I always say there were 6 guys out there carrying pipes to venues to broadcast music. He was also the first one. When I first met him, his charity work was, he was the first one to broadcast the Dalai Lama over the internet. So Mark, through the House of Blues, did all this digital strategy work, and we met when AT&T hired him to help bring to market A to B music, which was an early music compression technology.
Wow. Before MP3 or
pre-MP3. Yeah. And what is so interesting about AT&T is if it wasn't $1 billion business, they just let the technology sit on the floor, but they had the biggest brains in the world working on stuff.
Right.
And Mark had all this, had all these connections to musicians and bands, and did some of the first digital downloads of singles. 99 cents for a single.
Right.
And he ended up taking everything that he learned in the music industry early on, which ultimately Apple just owned.
Sure.
And he brought that to the film business. So what he watched happen in music, he said, I don't want this to happen to film. And a lot of his early work in film was from all these learnings. And his first company was called Electric Artists, because it was based in music.
I see. Yeah.
Is that good? Yeah. Okay.
You were a big picture person. I mean, some people are better at that than others. Yeah. Some people are kind of like the worker bees. And then there's other people who are more kind of, I'm trying not to use big, pithy sort of statements like visionary, but there is the visionary aspect to Mark. Well, like to see the big picture and see where things are going and what's. And
that's why he can make this film.
And I would say that this goes to what we were talking about at the beginning about Mark's character and his nature, which is the getting past the fear and being open, because most of us don't want to see the big picture because we're comfortable in the place we're at. We're comfortable in the day-to-day and the moments. And sometimes the future is big and scary because it presents all new things. And you can either be open to that or you can avoid it. And I think most of us go through life avoiding it. Yeah. And maybe that wasn't your nature,
Well, Mark was brought up to be fearless. Mm-hmm. And that is a gift his parents gave him. And I hope to give to my daughters with Mark.
It's a big one.
It's a big one.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Fun.
Yeah. Mark. Boom.
That's Mark.
Mark used to have these salons where he would talk about the potential of social media. I mean, you were so far ahead of the curve in that. It was amazing.
We're so excited to be here this afternoon to share with you our passion around street art. We both agreed that we would create Wooster Collective because we lived on Wooster Street, and a collective because we both were passionate about street art together.
White dress.
He knew about everybody before they had their moment. I mean, Shepard Fairey, they were very early to discover a lot of the street art talent.
And then it's funny because yesterday I was walking on it and I found you. So
but I remember Wooster Collective being the only thing I know, the only blog and the only site I know where to share your work, and that would have suddenly an impact that everyone interested in this kind of art would see.
called me 2 or 3 times, and he's like, I just ran into a wall. I don't feel good. And he'd been complaining of a headache for many weeks. And I said to him, well, you should just go to the walk-in clinic, these city MD clinics, and just have some guy check you out. You probably have allergies or something that's bugging you and giving you a headache. And at 10 o'clock or 10 or 11 in the morning, he called me from the walk-in clinic, and he said, I think they tell me I'm having a stroke. I think I'm having a stroke. And I said to Marc, don't worry, like, we're going to get through this. I'm here with you no matter what happens. We're going to get through this.